Welcome everyone to Otaku Talk. It's me, your boy, your host OD, and today we will be talking about chapter 328 of My Hero Academia. This chapter was kind of fire. On the low though, nothing extravagant happened until the last the most of the hype for me was that last page. But before we get into that, if this is your first time checking out this channel, I would greatly appreciate if you could like, share, subscribe, bang that bell. Please become my Nakama. Join the League of Otaku. Would mean the world to me. Anyway, without much further ado, let's get into this review because there is much to do. All right, My Hero Academia, chapter 328, Connected. We start off this chapter with a month prior to where we left off last week, and that was the big escape of Tartarus, right? There was a big prison break in which Stain was involved. And we start off the first page with this one dude who is clearly a serial rapist who's excited to get out and get back to raping again. And just before we can even blink, Stain shows up, cuts his neck. And it's just moments like this where our just befuddlement with who Stain is as a character gets called into question because like he's done really bad things. He's done incredibly like effed up things. But in moments like this, take like getting a rapist off the streets and like getting like I don't want to say a real villain because like Stain is a real villain despite his martyr complex or whatever. He's a real villain, but anyway, getting rid of a worse evil. But then again, is it? It's so you see what I'm saying? It's so hard to compartmentalize, but it was a cool scene nonetheless to just see him come in. And also, I have for the longest time always wondered what was going on with Stain's face. Dude always kind of looked like a weird human Ninja Turtle, if you know what I mean. And we see finally for the first time, or maybe I'm mistaken, maybe we've seen it before, but this is my first time noticing. It looks as though the reason Stain's nose is like that is because he cut off his nose. Like from the shadowing and whatnot, it looks like, yeah, it just looks like he just cut off his nose and all that's left are the two holes or whatever. And I thought that was super cool and super awesome. And personally, I really wish that like this is how we always see Stain. Now I understand the series is a shonen, so maybe they said, hey, we can't do that, we can't show that. Instead, it's just gonna be like no nose at all. But like, oh, I really like that character design. It's hard, it's badass, it's hard, it's edgy, it's everything that Stain is. So I hope we see that more, but I really doubt it. But that was really cool. Anyway, Stain is completely lost. He doesn't know what's happening. All he knows is that there's chaos in Tartarus, and his first course of action is to gain information. Now, something I want to remind everyone of is before Stain became a villain, he was actually a pro hero. So he's done all the training and all the stuff that Deku and the rest of the squad have done, right? Like he knows about using your brain and infiltration and information gathering, and so that's basically what he's doing right now. And he finds a guard, I guess, in the surveillance room, the camera room, and he's clenching something like a baby. So he goes over, and the guard is basically mumbling to himself. And Shigaraki comes to take whatever's in his hand, and the guard, to my surprise, is like, "Give find someone just, give this to someone just." And I'm confused. I'm like, you're giving this to. Did I call Stain Shigaraki? I hope I didn't. Anyway, you're giving this to Stain, right? Chizome. Shizome, however you pronounce his name, like he's a villain, right? But maybe this guard knows of Stain's roots, knows that even though Stain is a villain, he's not like the other villains. He doesn't do quote unquote senseless crime. So and at honestly at this moment in time, he has no one better to trust than Stain, who's more obscure as a villain than the rest of the people in Tartarus. So that's my head canon behind why he's willing to trust him with all that. So thanks to also before I move on, something I was really confused about is he said the guard tells us to find a just person, And Stain says, just the just person to give this to. That's all well and fine. But he says that, so he says only those that strive for a completely just world are monsters. And so I was really confused by what he was saying about that, because he considers All Might to be super just. And when he says he knows just the right person, we all know it's All Might. And so the fact that he feels that way about him, is it like one of those compliment kind of things where, like in Hajime no Ippo, where the main character, I forget his name, Takamura, draws the line in the sand and says, "Don't cross this until you're ready to become a monster." Or like in One Piece, how like Chopper felt bad because all his life he was called a monster, but now he wants to be a monster for his friends. So is it one of those things where it's not like a real insult? He's just saying those who have, that commitment, that tenacity to bring their justness to the world, kind of like, a Kainu or someone. Those are the true monsters, and not necessarily in a negative connotation or light, but just they're beasts, basically, right? So I was really, really interested in what exactly he meant by that. So yeah, let me know in the comments how you feel about that, because yeah, I was really, really interested in that. Anyway, we find out from the information that Stain has given to All Might that the Tartarus plan was executed because of the ability for All for One to relay information to Shigaraki via the quirk that he gave him. So it appears that if All for One gives you a quirk, he can somehow communicate with you telepathically, emotionally, via the quirk he is giving you. Like he's basically connected you guys in some way, hence the title of this chapter, Connected. And also it makes a lot of sense now how Lady Nagant got jacked up, because I always wondered, like, how did the quirk explode? How does that happen? How does he know that she betrayed him? Like, I had a lot of questions about that, and now it makes sense that, okay, if part of his consciousness resides in her, during that whole conversation with her and Deku, he's just there listening in, and he's like, okay, this bitch is about to betray me. Boom. So that clarified something for me, and it makes a lot of sense. It doesn't feel like a cop out. Doesn't seem like it's something out of nowhere. And the sheer fact that Deku can communicate with the vestiges and them with him, like that, more clearly showcases this. Anyway, All Might All Might says himself he's always been able to do this kind of communication, but it's always been one way. He's always been able to communicate with the vestige in his in the all One for All world, but never the remote. And that, I wonder, makes it really interesting, because what is he conveying? Is he talking about during the time Deku had the quirk? So there's a lot of stuff with this that's really confusing. I plan to do a reread when the Viz translation comes out, so I can get more of a better understanding, because maybe a lot of my confusion is coming from like translation error. If you guys have an understanding of both what I said earlier, the just thing, as well as this with the connection and being able to communicate one way, like what would the essence of him communicating to his quirk be, and if it couldn't communicate back, unless he of course was talking about while it was in Deku and he's communicating with his quirk, so his quirk, not his quirk, but the vestige within his quirk, so that it can talk to the rest of the wielders of One for All, and then they can communicate that to Deku. I have no clue, but he says the only time he was able to get any kind of feedback from his vestige was when he touched Deku, and a flood of emotions and communication entered him. So that was really interesting. What I'm really interested in the fact of what makes Deku special, because if All Might for however long could only send one-sided messages, Deku seems to be able to, completely communicate with the vestiges inside himself. So what exactly makes Deku special? Also, something that popped up in my head while I was reading was, if All for One can communicate with people he's given his quirks to, right? And they can communicate back to a degree. And Deku and All Might can communicate with their vestiges, and in Deku's case, they can communicate back, right? Would it stand to reason that All for One could somehow communicate with Deku or eavesdrop on Deku. Because at the end of the day, Deku's quirk is a quirk that was given to the original wielder, All for One's brother, by All for One. And so, if he is able to communicate, tap into quirks that he has given people, it stands to reason that he may be able to secretly have conversations with Deku or secretly be able to listen in on conversations between the vestiges. So, maybe that's possibly why he's always one step ahead. I don't know. That's just a theory I'm throwing out. Just came up with it on the fly. It's just something to think about. Anyway, even though All for One can communicate with Shigaraki via his quirks, it seems like it's not 100% perfect. Maybe it's like communicating feelings or emotions or something like that. So I think what we found out is he might have a radio wave quirk, which is what they use to eavesdrop and parse the data and find out how much time they actually have. And it appears that One for All will be ready, or at All for One will be ready or prepared to do whatever his scheme is in 38 days, right? And on top of that, Shigaraki, the vessel, will be ready to take in All for One's power in 3 days. Correct me if I'm wrong. Once again, I'm a little confused on the wording. Like, we thought originally we had 2 months. Now we're told that All for One will be complete in 38 days. And then we're told that Shigaraki will be completed as a vessel in 3 days. And my question is, if he's going to be completed as a vessel in 3 days, isn't that the actual timeline? Because wouldn't just All for One go in him after 3 days? So, like I said, I'm missing something here. I only got to read it over like twice, and I have to go to work soon, so I didn't have time to really dive deep and dissect it. But yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know what you think. The deadline is, because the way I interpret it is, All for One will be completed in 38 days. Shigaraki will be healed, completed, corked up in 3 days, and then by the 38th day, maybe that's when All for One will try to take over the completed Shigaraki body. But in the meantime, Shigaraki will carry out all the plans needed via the radio waves or quirk communication. Finally, to end off this chapter, we have my favorite part of the chapter, and it appears to be some kind of like underground hero United Nations meeting, UN meeting, and basically they're being told to locally source their heroes, not to basically get heroes from foreign countries to come and help them because of an issue of whenever that happens, the foreign heroes tend not to follow instructions or directions. And I kind of understand that. It kind of makes a lot of sense to me because that happens here now. Like, if you're fighting or following orders from your own, you're more inclined to do it than when someone else from somewhere else tells you to do it. And it's kind of like you probably feel like you're doing them a favor, or hey, I don't, you're not in charge of me. This guy's in charge of me, kind of thing. But we do see that we have certain heroes like Salam, who I can only assume is from Egypt, and then we have Big Red Dot, who I'm just gonna assume because of Big Red is from Russia, due to their friendship and I would assume respect for All Might. They're willing to come to Japan ASAP and help out. And then this is where my favorite part comes in. We find out, which we can only assume is America. They say, unfortunately, our hero is really impatient and has already left. And we get the coolest introduction ever. We see this hero standing on top of these American stealth jets, and it is none other than Stars and Stripes. Apparently, All Might's former disciple. She calls All Might her master. She looks incredible. She essentially looks like a female All Might. I can't wait to find out what her quirk is, what she can do, more about her personality. But she looks like a badass motherfucker, and I want to learn. I instantly want to learn everything about her background, her backstory, how she met All Might, how much she trained with him. Because I do remember I was under the impression that All Might only went to America for a little while to study under a hero there, learn under a hero there, and then he came back to Japan. So I guess that there was a time period after he went from a rookie to a full on hero that he took in a disciple, a Padawan under himself. So yeah, I just instantly like it's crazy how within only one page I grew this attachment to this character. I already know that I'm going to love this character, and I'm just excited to learn so much more about this character. Oh, oh, and I can tell she looks, bro. I don't know. She looks confident, cocky as fuck. I don't know about you, but I see a hero standing on a jet like it's no big deal in the world, arms crossed, like yo, I gotta go help my master. He's in danger. He needs help. Like yo, that shit is lit, super lit. And one of my favorite comments I read during like in the comment sections during this is like, so now we get where all his smash moves came from, and I'm like dying, absolutely dying. Anyway, this has been Otaku Talk. I'm your host OD. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe. It would mean the world to me. And yeah, let me know what you guys think. Do you think that one All for One is going to be able to communicate or spy on the One for All quirk? Do you think that we have 3 days until we're in danger, or it's 38 days and they were just talking about like originally what would have happened? And yeah, what are your guesses to what Stars and Stripes quirk is gonna be? Um, her relationship to All Might, when he would have worked with her, and all of that. And yeah, let's leave it there for today. Have a great day. Take care. Bye. Peace.